Hello students, welcome to the lecture on the role of supply chain in economy and organization. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Discuss the supply chain, describe the objectives and importance of supply chain, define evolution of supply chain management, describe the key concepts in supply chain, describe enablers of supply chain, explain the supply chain performance in India. Let's start with what supply chain management is. The concept of supply chain management is originated from logistic research. Adaptive supply chain networks address an organization's most pressing supply chain problems such as the following issues. Outsourcing, nearshoring, and offshoring have resulted in supply networks that require multiple geographically dispersed partners to bring products and services to market. Supply chain risk has increased as lead times have become longer and more variable because of geographically dispersed partners who are stretching the supply chain to the limits. Let us now understand what supply chain is. A supply chain is a network of facilities and distribution options that performs the functions of procurement of materials, transformation of these materials into intermediate and finished products, and the distribution of these finished products to customers. Many supply chains have been significantly altered over the past decade, but this core definition remains unchanged. Over time, firms have increasingly looked to improve the efficiency of their supply chains by re-evaluating two key types of transactions. Physical flows of material connect members of a supply chain moving forward from suppliers to customers in each link of the chain. Data flow moves backward from customers to suppliers as orders are placed and payments are made for materials, services, parts and supplies. The supply chain not only includes the manufacturer and suppliers, but also transporters, warehouses, retailers and customers themselves. Supply chain management is a set of approaches utilized to efficiently integrate suppliers, manufacturers, warehouses and stores so that merchandise is produced and distributed at the right quantities to the right locations and at the right time in order to minimize system-wide costs while satisfying service level requirements. These supply chain stages include customers, retailers, wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, component raw material suppliers. Now we will discuss the objectives of supply chain. The objective of every supply chain is to maximize the overall value generated. The value a supply chain generates is the difference between what the final product is worth to the customer and the effort the supply chain expends in filling the customer's request. For most commercial supply chains, value will be strongly correlated with supply chain profitability, the difference between the revenue generated from the customer and the overall cost across the supply chain. For example, a customer purchasing a computer from Dell pays INR 30,000, which represents the revenue the supply chain receives. Dell and other stages of the supply chain incur costs to convey information, produce components, store them, transport them, transfer funds and so on. The difference between the INR 30,000 that the customer paid and the sum of all costs incurred by the supply chain to produce and distribute the computer represents the supply chain profitability. Supply chain profitability is the total profit to be shared across all supply chain stages. The higher the supply chain profitability, the more successful the supply chain. Supply chain success should be measured in terms of supply chain profitability and not in terms of the profits at an individual stage. Having defined the success of a supply chain in terms of supply chain profitability, the next logical step is to look for sources of revenue and cost. For any supply chain, there is only one source of revenue, the customer. At Walmart, a customer purchasing detergent is the only one providing positive cash flow for the supply chain. Now we will study the importance of supply chain. Supply chain management, SCM, is an essential element to operational efficiency. SCM can be applied to customer satisfaction and company success, as well as within societal settings, including medical missions, disaster relief operations, and other kinds of emergencies, cultural evolution, and it can help improve quality of life. Because of the vital role SCM plays within organizations, employers seek employees with an abundance of SCM skills and knowledge. Supply chain management is critical to business operations and success for the following reasons. SCM is globally necessary. Basically, the world is one big supply chain. Supply chain management touches major issues including the rapid growth of multinational corporations and strategic partnerships, global expansion and sourcing, fluctuating gas prices, and environmental concerns. Each of these issues dramatically affects corporate strategy and bottom line. Reasons for SCM in society. Supply chain management is necessary to the foundation and infrastructure within societies. Reasons for SCM in business. Clearly, the impact that SCM has on business is significant and exponential. Two of the main ways SCM affects business include boosts customer service. SCM impacts customer service by making sure the right product assortment and quantity are delivered in a timely fashion. Additionally, those products must be available in the location that customers expect. Customers should also receive quality after-sale customer support. Improves bottom line. SCM has a tremendous impact on the bottom line. Firms value supply chain managers because they decrease the use of large fixed assets such as plants, warehouses, and transportation vehicles in the supply chain. Also, cash flow is increased because if delivery of the product can be expedited, profits will also be received quickly. Supply chain management helps streamline everything from day-to-day product flows to unexpected natural disasters. With the tools and techniques that SCM offers, we will have the ability to properly diagnose problems, work around disruptions, and determine how to efficiently move products to those in a crisis situation. Supply chain logistics, whether internal or outsourced, is a very important part of the success of any company. The profitability of a company depends on how many products leave the production area, which is directly related to supply chain logistics. There is nothing within the world of business that is not dominated in some way by the need for reliable inventory management and supply chain logistics. In reality, no company can survive without some kind of supply chain logistics being involved. Without supply chain logistics, there would be no distribution of products between locations. Let's know the meaning of evolution of supply chain management. In the early days, the supply chain management was referred to the functions of logistics, transportation, purchasing, and supplies. However, the evolution of the supply chain management has moved to focus on integration, visibility, cycle time reduction, and streamlined channels. The new integration has a variety of activities that include integrated purchasing strategy, supplier integration, supply-based management, supply chain management. Logistics activities exist since the early 1900s. These activities were first associated with the military as a branch of war that pertains to the movement and the supply for armies. Military forces always used to make use of logistics models to ensure the availability of the required material at the right place and on right time. Logistics is being used by the military even today. After 1950, supply chain management got a boost with the production and manufacturing sector getting highest attention. The inventory became the responsibility of the marketing, accounting, and production areas. Order processing was part of accounting and sales. Supply chain management became one of the most powerful engines of business transformation. It is the one area where operational efficiency can be gained. It reduces organizations' costs and enhances customer service. The evolution led to an internet-based application for supply chain management. The landscape has changed in recent years. Industry recognized that trends including outsourcing, offshoring, lean manufacturing, and just-in-time that focus on reducing manufacturing and supply chain costs significantly increase the level of risk in the supply chain. A number of approaches have been applied by industry to manage risk in their supply chains. Building redundancy into the supply chain so that if one portion fails, for example, are at a warehouse or a closed port, the supply chain can still satisfy demand. Using information to better sense and respond to disruptive events. Let us move to another topic, the key concepts in supply chain. Supply chains encompass the companies and the business activities needed to design, make, deliver, and use a product or service. Businesses depend on their supply chains to provide them with what they need to survive and thrive. Every business fits into one or more supply chains and has a role to play in each of them.
Supply chain excellence is a competitive differentiator across industries. Based on research from AMR on the top 25 supply chains in the world, we see that investment in these companies yielded an average return of 17.89% in 2007, compared with returns of 6.43% for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and 3.53% for the S&P 500. In other words, if making more money is in your interest, then supply chain management expertise really matters. Around the world, a growing number of companies have recognized the need to develop this expertise. However, companies face a giant obstacle to achieve this goal. There's a shortage of trained supply chain management professionals at all levels. This is a real problem. Some have even gone so far to call it a crisis. And while it is very real, it is not complicated. It is simply a matter of supply and demand for talent. The supply side of the equation is the number of experienced supply chain managers with the skills that companies are looking for, and unfortunately, it is low. The demand side represents the number of companies actively seeking supply chain managers with real-world and proven skills. On this side of the equation, the demand is very high. In fact, due to a number of factors, the demand for these skilled employees keeps rising year after year after year. Because of these facts, recruiting and retaining supply chain managers with proven real-world skills is a top concern for most companies in 2012 and beyond. Currently, there are two primary options that companies have when trying to fill their pipeline. One, they can train people from within, or two, they can recruit talent from top universities around the world. This creates the second problem. Many of the skills needed to effectively manage a modern-day supply chain are only acquired by hands-on work with real supply chains solving real-world problems for real companies. They do not come from the classroom. Passing a test, receiving a credential, or even graduating from a top MBA program does not prove real-world skills that companies are requiring. So here's the question. How do we bridge the gap between companies' high demand for skilled supply chain managers and the future supply chain professional without the ability to acquire those skills? Everybody knows that the best way to learn something is by doing it. There is no substitution for the real thing. That is why landing an internship at a great company can go a long way for advancing your career. However, many times the risk is too high or it's just not cost effective to practice that skill in the real world. Take pilot training, for example. Because of the high risks and high cost of flying an airplane, almost all of today's pilots are first trained using flight simulators. It doesn't matter if you're building skills to fly privately, commercially, or in the military, you will be spending a lot of time in the simulator. Why? Because it just works. So what if universities and companies could teach the real-world skills needed to successfully manage complex global supply chains the same way that the airlines do, by simulating a real-life global supply chain in a virtual world? And what if we could at the same time make that simulation engaging, entertaining, and fun? By doing so, the student could learn real-world skills, solve real-world problems, get real experience, have zero risk of failure, have low or even no cost, and at the same time, actually have fun. That's great and all, but here's where the real magic happens. Let's take Caterpillar as an example. Caterpillar is obviously a real company. You may have heard of them. Caterpillar has a large global supply chain that allows them to manufacture and deliver heavy machinery around the world. Their supply chain is very complex and very real. But with that complexity comes very real problems for Caterpillar's supply chain managers. Problems that, in this case, create the biggest opportunity of all. This is why we are going to simulate Caterpillar's full supply chain in a virtual 3D world using the latest video game technologies. Every warehouse, manufacturing plant, shipping route will be modeled in full 3D for users to interact with. Then, we are going to apply a proven framework to this model in order to help users find and fix the smallest of problems. Finally, we're going to invite really smart MBA students from around the world to participate in the simulation. Students from qualifying university programs around the world will be given a chance of a lifetime to actually interact and learn from Caterpillar's global supply chain. They will solve real problems, learn valuable lessons, and most importantly, gain the skills needed to get hired by top companies. Finally, students will be able to learn by actually.
Demand planning sets the tone. As sources and capacities for manufacturing have increased, more companies have moved away from focusing efforts on plant-level production planning and are adopting more of a demand-driven focus of trying to impedance and manage demand more efficiently. The demand-driven approach can help a company create a more customer-focused mindset without sacrificing operational efficiency. Globalization. The business landscape is rapidly becoming more global. Largely due to improvements in communications, globalization is dramatically impacting the way business is managed and transacted even on the most local levels. Manufacturing, distribution, sourcing of materials, invoicing and returns have all been significantly impacted by the increased integration of a global customer and supplier base, and many companies and that existing processes and technology are not flexible enough for this new business environment. The right supply chain design is critical to managing the changes brought about by rapid globalization. A well thought out supply chain network design can optimize the network and the flow of materials through the network. In doing so, network design captures the cost of the supply chain with a total landed cost perspective and applies advanced mathematical technology to determine optimal answers to both strategic and tactical questions. Increased competition and price pressures. Historically, price, product features, and brand recognition were enough to differentiate many products in the marketplace. With the continued commoditization of many products, companies need better ways to distinguish themselves. Companies should not only look to their supply chain to drive cost improvement, but should increase capabilities as a means for staying competitive. outsourcing. As many companies step back and examine their core competencies, some realize that outsourcing parts or all of a supply chain can be advantageous. With marketplace improvements around, information media and systems, cost and quality of global manufacturing and distribution, and product design capabilities, companies are gaining additional synergies by outsourcing all or parts of their supply chain. The optimally outsourced supply chain, either in its entirety or just a component, relies heavily on superior supply chain network design, inclusion of that outsourced partner in the information chain, establishment of control mechanisms to proactively monitor the various components of the supply chain, and shortened and more complex product life cycles. To develop innovative products and bring them to market more rapidly while minimizing cannibalization of existing products which are still in high demand. As the economy becomes more global, labeling and compliance to packaging requirements and regulations have become critical to success. Without adherence to local packaging and labeling regulations, a product may violate local requirements, preventing it from being distributed and sold in that market. Collaboration between stakeholders in the extended supply chain. As supply chains continue to develop and mature, a move towards more intense collaboration between customers and suppliers has occurred. A supply chain is a network of organizations that are involved in different processes and activities that produce value in the form of products and services in the hands of the ultimate consumer. The supply chain is a MET structure. A MET structure is an intermediate form between a single enterprise microstructure and global economy macrostructure. The concept of sustainable development is the result of the growing awareness of the global links between mounting environmental problems, socio-economic issues to do with poverty and inequality, and concerns about a healthy future for humanity. The supply chain has been traditionally defined as a one-way integrated manufacturing process wherein raw materials are converted into final products, then delivered to customers. The change in environmental requirements affecting manufacturing operations, increasing attention is given to developing environmental ISM methodology. It is generally felt that individuals or groups encounter difficulties in dealing with complex issues or systems. The complexity of the issues or systems is due to the presence of a large number of elements and interactions among these elements. The presence of directly or indirectly related elements complicates the structure of the commitment from top management, buyer awareness, supplier awareness, adequate adoption of reverse logistic practice, environmental performance, reduction of air emission, reduction of wastewater, reduction of solid waste, decrease of consumption for hazardous, harmful, toxic materials, eco-literacy amongst supply chain partner, green purchasing, providing design specifications to suppliers that include environmental requirements for purchased items, cooperation with suppliers for environmental objectives, environmental audit for suppliers' inner management, corporate social responsibilities, environmental standards, auditing programs, mutual transparencies, development of alliances, horizontal, vertical, collaborative practices, market demand, environmentally friendly products, logistics asset sharing, the joint use of a warehouse by two or more actors of the SC, adoption of a cleaner technology, a logistics solution using the so-called clean transport modes, barge, high level of supply chain integration, partnerships to develop common sustainable solutions. Now we will discuss the performance of supply chain in India. Supply chain management has gained significant importance in the 21st century. It is so because small companies like Walmart, Dell, and Amazon owe their entire success to their agile and adaptive supply chain. These were small companies virtually unknown not so long ago, and suddenly they became the most competitive and admired companies on the stock bourse.
Walmart, the American retail giant, was founded in 1962 by Sam Walton. He had one strategy in mind, and that was to offer shoppers lower prices than they get anywhere else. Walton opened its first store in Rogers, Arkansas, and within 5 years the company expanded to 24 stores across Arkansas. The rest is history, and in 2009 there are approximately 8,500 stores in 15 countries with 55 different names, making it the world's largest retailer, including Asda in the UK. Walmart is servicing up to 100 million customers who are shopping at its stores on a weekly basis, nearly 1/3 of the US population. In order to achieve these staggering growth results, Walmart had to adopt a few key strategies. Number 1, get suppliers to offer them the cheapest prices, and when the supplier seems to have gone as low as they can, Walmart pushes them even further. The sheer size of the retail chain has forced suppliers to these demands. Number 2, they pushed the universal barcode, which forced manufacturers to adopt common labeling, saving costs in packaging and taking fat out of its supply chain process. Number 3, truly offer your shoppers the lowest prices they can get. It is not surprising then that group results for the 2010 fiscal year reported net sales of more than $405 billion, with international net sales exceeding $100 billion for the first time ever. Walmart, as well as other chains within the retail industry, have and still are using coupons as a unique tool to create brand awareness and to increase foot traffic into their stores. When searching on the internet, it seems that coupons are the order of the current day. Starting from the humble beginnings in print, where Coca-Cola offered a free glass of Coke for a paper ticket in 1887, to a thriving marketing tool today, including both online and print forms. Coupon redemption hit an all-time high in 1999 at 4.6 billion sales and has been an instrumental tool in saving American families significant amounts of money over the past few years. Since that peak, the redemption of coupons has been on a slow and steady decline, tapering off at only 2.6 billion sales in 2008. With the change in the economic climate since 2009, it can be questioned if the coupon still has a place in the retail marketing landscape, and if used effectively, it could aid retail chains like Walmart and its goal for increasing growth in sales profits and
SCM and Logistics Defined. The Council of Logistic Management, CLM, defines SCM as the systematic, strategic coordination of the traditional business functions and tactics across these business functions within a particular organization and across business within a supply chain for the purpose of improving the long-term performance of the individual organizations and the supply chain as a whole. Literature survey. The traditional protective economic, industrial and organizational boundaries have been demolished. To compete successfully, today's marketplace organizations need concurrently to manage effectively and efficiently the activities of design, manufacturing, distribution, service and recycling of their products and services to customers. According to Lee, top-performing supply chain possesses 3 very different qualities. They are agility, adaptability, and alignment. The above qualities cannot be attained without collaboration, optimization, and connectivity. The recent technological advances in IT have made it possible to make supply chain lean and thin. Holistically speaking, without IT systems in place, no supply chain could be agile or could adapt and align fast to the changing business needs. IT tools and technologies. Information is essential to making supply chain and logistic decisions because IT provides the global scope needed to make optimal decisions. Best-in-class companies worldwide have successfully used sophisticated IT systems to streamline process and enable effective decision-making. Collaborative Planning, Forecasting and Replenishment (CPFR). CPFR model was developed by SCOR, Supply Chain Organization, and at its essence, CPFR is a set of business processes that helps eliminate demand and supply uncertainty through improved communication between supply chain trading partners. Enterprise Resource Planning (ERP). ERP provides the transactional tracking and global visibility of information from any part of a company and its supply chain that allows intelligent decisions to be made. This real-time information helps a supply chain to improve the quality of its operational decisions. This ERP software has been successful in improving data integrity within the supply chain. Customers Relations Management (CRM). In the changing global environment, increasing customer satisfaction is one of key success factors in all industries, so also in supply chain management. So it is very much essential to make all policies keeping in view customer and availability of technology. But with IT-enabled SCM with CRM software can store customer details while making transactions with the customer monitors buying and behavior of decisions of different customers, minimize internal fault, help in the automation process, automatic tracking and response, bill finalization and analysis of communication pattern. Supplier Relation Management (SRM). Supplier relation management is to streamline and make more effective the process between an enterprise and supplier. SRM includes both business practices and software and is a part of the information flow component of SCM. According to the proponents, the use of SRM software leads to lower production costs, higher quality, but lower priced end product. Electronic Supply Chain (e-Supply Chain). With the quick development of electronic commerce, SCM can be made more effective through electronic means. For instance, through website, each member in the chain can access the shared database. Supply chains can be designed and studied through a systematic approach which considers the various levels at which information technology can be applied in a traditional supply chains. Integrated Supply Chain Network. An integrated supply chain network is a group of independent companies, often located in different countries, forming a strategic alliance with the common goal of designing, manufacturing and delivering right quality products to customer groups faster than other alliance groups and vertically integrated firms. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Supply chain management (SCM) is an essential element to operational efficiency. The emphasis on supply chain management among current economic analysts came from the study of deindustrialization and restructuring of the industry. Supply chain management is necessary to the foundation and infrastructure within societies. SCM within a well-functioning society creates jobs, decreases pollution, decreases energy use, and increases the standard of living. In an outsource-heavy environment, companies need to put more controls and systems in place to compensate for the fact that their supply chain capabilities no longer reside on-site. The right supply chain design is critical to managing the changes brought about by rapid globalization.